Well, hey everyone, and welcome to another one of my videos. So in this video I will be mostly talking about this bandsaw mill that I built like 3 or 4 years ago now. I'm not really sure about the date, but anyway, I want to go through every design choice I made. I know I made numerous videos on this bandsaw mill, you can check them out on my channel. But over the years, I made a lot of changes to my design, and I don't think really the previous videos do it justice. So let's just kind of dive right into it, and let's start with probably the most hardest part, which is the design of the shaft itself. So this is my first design for the shaft that I chose. It's very straightforward. It's just a random round stock, 35 millimeters. A car CV joint or CV housing. I added a thread to the top of this round stock that matches this thread inside the housing, and this housing just screwed on top of this round stock, and later I just welded this thing together. And then you have this thing. I'm pretty sure you know what this is. So this goes into these grooves and lock it with the center pin or center bolt, and then you install your wheel here. So, and you have your two bearings. So this is the first design choice I chose, and it's been working fine, but because I had that shaft break last year, I decided to change out this shaft also, because this shaft also has this kind of wobble in it. So I'm guessing it's because when I welded this thing together, I burned it in pretty hot, and I'm thinking that's probably why it has this very small wobble in it when it's turning, you know, and eventually I think metal fatigue will creep in and it will break from here. So I decided to change it out, and this is my new shaft that I had specially made for this. It's basically same, only thing the housing is missing, and these screws have been done on a lathe for me. So you can see very easy design, and I can reuse this part. This will go in here and also lock it in place with a center bolt. So how this shaft is mounted to the frame, pretty simple actually. It's mounted with three bearings that have been connected to a steel plate, which is locked in place with 4 adjustment bolts. So with these 4 bolts all around, I can adjust the shaft left, right, and also up and down. I pretty much just set these things in place, and I have not touched these things ever since. So onto the pulley side here, I currently have a single 355 millimeter pulley on this side and a 70 millimeter pulley on that side. It's been working fine, you know, but I think the tooth speed is a bit too big. I'm thinking I'm getting around 5300 feet per minute, which is a bit fast for a, you know, homemade bandsaw mill. You get that sort of speed out of a professional level bandsaw mills that you buy, but for do-it-yourself mills, this is a bit too big. So most of the time with the engine, I'm cutting at almost idle speeds. Something lower than the middle basically is perfect speed, I've noticed, because if I go full throttle, then it doesn't improve cutting at all, but it improves vibration a lot, and vibration is something you really want to avoid as much as possible. So to fix this, I did get a second pulley ordered from China, and this is 450 versus 355, so this is 95 millimeters bigger, so this should bring my teeth speed down quite a bit. And also on the plus side, this is a double belt pulley versus a single belt pulley, because some of the people in my comments said that this size engine, this is a 13 horsepower engine, this really needs to have a 2-belt setup. I've used one belt for all this time, and yeah, not a single belt has broken on me. And let's move on to the tensioning system now. So I made this a couple of years ago, this upgrade, and I've used it ever since, and it works really great, and I think I'm gonna keep using it. It's very easy to use. Also, I'm gonna demonstrate how it works quickly here. So basically I just installed my belt, and then I use this lever to, you know, I have to unscrew this a bit, then I use my lever to tension the belt. Untensioned, tensioned, untensioned, tensioned, and engine is moving inside these. I'm not sure how well you can see, but the engine is moving inside these box tubes. And I added a bit of oil in there, and it really smooths everything out. But I think that is why I have all this sawdust kind of clinging here. But that's not a problem. And to lock it in place, I just use a small screw here, and add a bit of tension to it. And then just lock it in place like this. Don't need to go very deep. And if there is an emergency, I can either shut down the engine from the shut off button, or just lift this up slightly and detension the belt. So this setup has been working pretty well, and I'm thinking I'm gonna keep this setup with the new pulleys. So the lifting mechanism is also incredibly easy to do. Just weld a couple of points here connected with steel wire rope to just a hand hoist here, boat hoist I think they're called, and a single pulley on this side. That side doesn't require a pulley because the steel wire goes down from the hoist itself, and very easy to operate. I believe this hoist has a capacity of about 1.7 tons. So this was the biggest hoist they had in the shop, and it's been working out great. So the cooling system is also pretty simple. It's a 20-liter canister with some tubing coming out of the bottom here, going through a valve that I can open and close as much as I want really. And tubing will go straight to where my blades are riding. So you can see water is dripping from here, and the blade will be riding underneath this plastic here, and the blade will carry the water all the way around, which that's how it's supposed to be, I guess. So next up, let's talk about these blade guides themselves. I've had these from the beginning, and I'm still surprised that the bearings are in good shape, which is interesting. But anyway, my blade is running underneath these bearings, and they are not touching the backstop positioning. They are just shy of it, maybe like 0.5 millimeter. And on this side, it's just barely feathering against it. So the design choices here pretty simple. I just have a long bolt here that is the perfect fit for this bearing here. It goes all the way deep end here, and then I adjust these, adjust the pivot and tilt on this bearing with these bolts. As you can see, I haven't really touched these bolts for a long time. So you're probably wondering why I have these plastic guards here on the back of the guides. Well, that's because one time I had kind of problem when the blade was too dull and I just kept pushing it, and the blade jumped over this backstop and it started grinding against these bolts. The blade was basically just running in this location or under here, and it pretty much destroyed the blade. That's why after I added these blocks here, so the blade cannot go past this block, and this will prevent the blade from ever going behind these bearings. So that's why I added those two green plastic blade catchers, I call them. So this side is fixed. I can only adjust this up and down. I haven't done so ever since the beginning. Every now and then on this side I do adjust it, and on left or right notion it's also, well, I need two hands, but it's doable even with one. Maybe not. No, yeah, I can do it. So this is the maximum width I can cut on this bandsaw mill. I'm guessing it's probably around 65 centimeters, or maybe I can squeeze in 70, I'm not really sure. So I'm gonna add the new shaft here now, somehow. And I also need to do some welding here to add the extra bearing here as well. See you when this is done. Okay, so I added the new shaft here now. Did some welds here to secure a new plate in place for that extra bearing. But anyway, let's install the wheel now. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the wheels themselves, the drive wheels, I mean, these things. At first I used some rubber tracks, but that didn't work out very well, though those failed pretty fast. So finally I opted for these steel, specially milled wheels that are riding on top of the tips of this angle iron, and this actually works out pretty well. But I still need some track cleaners because sawdust still gets, you know, between the groove here, and every so now and then you could feel that little bump, you know, if there is a wet sawdust spot here. So I just installed these smaller angle irons that are riding on top of this angle iron, and this actually works out pretty well. I can demonstrate right now if there is some wet sawdust going on here, for example, like this. So the cleaner cleans the track before the debris hit the wheel, and I mounted them on all sides, back and front. So this design is pretty good, and I think these will last pretty much forever. So next thing, let's talk about the tensioning and how I change the blade. What I basically do, I just deflate both of these tires, and then I can dismount the old plate and install a new one. So I'm gonna demonstrate that right now. Put it over one of the wheels and just rotate the other wheel until the blade is on. Other side, by the way. It goes on a bit hard, but nothing too serious. So now that the blade is on the wheels, all I basically do is try to grip the bandsaw blade on the guide bearings or guide wheels, and after that I just spin it around until it sets in its spot, and it's always been like that for me. I don't know if I'm lucky or anything like that. I help it along with my hand a bit. So now that it's on both of these bearings, I just spin it around and around. and now it's on its place, and I don't really need to do anything other else than just reflate both of these tires. I usually pump them about 1.5 atmospheres or 1.5 bars. Right, so let's change this one out also. To actually remove this thing, it's very simple. There are 3 holes here. You just remove the bolts or nuts here. The thing is actually broken. I didn't even notice. Holy shit. Wow. I did not even notice, but this thing is actually broken. Okay, anyway, I think it's not a big deal that it's broken. You may notice that it has this pinhole here, but my shaft, it has none. It's completely unnecessary, I think, because the way this thing actually grips the shaft, it holds the shaft so strongly in place that it will not slip even without a pin connection here. So kind of funny how this thing has rusted out on both sides, except where it grips together, you know. Okay, time to install this bad boy. I don't know, guys, it seems kind of big. What do you think? It's almost as big as the freaking wheel there. It should bring my blade speed down, increase the cutting force. So overall, this should help a lot. Hopefully we'll see. I think I'm gonna try to cut the biggest log I have ever cut later on this year. And we'll see how that goes with this new pulley setup. But anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap this video up, and later this year, maybe next month, I'm gonna try to cut the biggest log I have ever cut on this bandsaw mill. I believe it was like 60 or 70 centimeters wide. So actually I can show you the log, what I'm talking about. I have a bunch of them here that I wanna try cutting. These things are huge, and I'm hoping to get some nice lumber out of it. So that's a good way to test the new pulley setup. Anyway, got some mushrooms going on here, but the logs that I actually want to try cutting is this one down here. So I'm thinking this is like 65 or 70 centimeters wide. So maybe also this one. Has a bunch of holes in it, but holes are very good if you're doing epoxy tables and stuff like that. And I'm not sure about this one. I think this is too far gone, but we'll see later on this year. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll see you in the next one.